What was it like to tabernacle in the midst of Yahweh? I want to look at that today and think about what was it like and what are the implications for us today? Was it exciting? Was it a struggle? What can we learn? And I want to start by looking at Numbers 9:17 through 18. If you're in a place right now where you're constantly looking for God's will and wanting to know how to keep in step with what He's doing, how to examine your life to find out places where you can take it to the next level, you want to stay tuned for this. We're going to cover some things here that they were doing during this time that I believe we can learn from today. All right, Numbers 9, verse 17, it says, "And whenever the cloud lifted from over the tent, after that the people of Israel set out. And in that place, and in the place where the cloud settled down, there the people of Israel camped. At the command of Yahweh, the people of Israel set out, and at the command of Yahweh, they camped. As long as the cloud rested over the tabernacle, they remained in camp." So to give you a little background, and I would encourage you to read Numbers 9, starting in verse 15, I think it is, and around this area to get the full context. But if you know or remember or need some refresher, Yahweh is living. They've left Egypt and now they're tabernacled with Yahweh. He meets with Moses in the tent right outside the camp. And whenever Moses goes there, there's this cloud that comes over. And otherwise, the cloud sits over the tent of meeting. In the daytime, you can see it as a big cloud. At nighttime, it looks like a fire. So whenever that cloud would lift, the community knew it was time to go. And wherever it settled, and whenever it settled, they knew it was time in the place. They knew the time and place of where to go. And as we see in these couple verses, they were extremely obedient and responsive to that. Look, we could stop there, can't we? Wouldn't that be cool if this is exactly how it worked in our life, personally, and as a nation of people? The cloud lifted, which representing Yahweh and His will, saying it's time to go. And everyone says it's time to get up. It settles down and we say the same thing. It's time to settle here. But I think the challenge that's happened over time, and has happened even during this time, is we've taken our eyes off that cloud and we've no longer looked for it. And we will start to see some of the challenges that this community got into as well. So if I had to title this lesson, I would call it Follow the Cloud. Follow the cloud. You know, we have uploads to the cloud and whatnots, but this is follow the cloud. So let's get back to that. And I want to ask this question. Everything seems to be going perfectly. And according to the scripture, that's exactly what was happening. They're following Yahweh in His cloud. But the question I have is, what happens to obedience when the instructions don't make sense? Have you ever been given some direction and you were happy to follow until it didn't quite make sense? You started to think maybe the person got the information incorrect. You thought that there was a better way. I know that I got in trouble with this all the time as a kid. And I would come up with a better way, or I would hear what I want to hear and do it that way. But particularly because I'm such a cerebral person, I guess some would say, I'm always thinking and examining and saying, is that the best way? And if I can't figure it out, I may not do it. I may not do it with the same zeal that I should do it in, because it doesn't make sense. Have you ever been in a situation like that at your job, with a parent, with an authority figure of any kind, and you were given some direction, but it didn't make sense? What was your heart? Did you still do it? Did you have questions? Did you have reservations? What was your personality like? You get rebellious and say, that's just dumb. I'm not doing that. Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you said it to yourself. Maybe you did say it out loud, depending on your personality. But things change when it don't make sense. And the reason I'm asking this is because when you start to look at the verses that follow, you can imagine that some in the community would have had this question. Because the passage continues to read as this. Even when the cloud continued over the tabernacle many days, the people of Israel kept the charge of Yahweh and did not set out. Amen. Sometimes the cloud was a few days over the tabernacle, and according to the command of Yahweh, they remained in camp. Then, according to the command of Yahweh, they set out. And sometimes the cloud remained from evening until morning. And when the cloud lifted in the morning, they set out. Or if it continued for a day and a night, when the cloud lifted, they set out. Whether it was 2 days or a month or a longer time that the cloud continued over the tabernacle, abiding there, the people of Israel remained in camp and did not set out. But when it lifted and set out, at the command of Yahweh, they camped, and at the command of Yahweh, they set out. They kept the charge of Yahweh at the command of Yahweh by Moses. They're keeping the charge of Yahweh. But I want you to pay attention to the schedule that Yahweh kept for how he moved the cloud. How frequently did he move? Was it once every other day? Every week? Every 2 months? If you study these scriptures carefully, it doesn't take much to see that there was no easily visible timeline. And for many of us who need a schedule, he didn't send out any email, text, no calendar reminders. He didn't say, here's what's coming up, so get ready. Matter of fact, in verse 20 and verse 21, you see sometimes it was like this, and sometimes it was like that. Now, it's worth pausing here because we must consider the pains that were taken to set up camp. This wasn't like a little camping trip where you take a tent and you pop it up and you blow up your mattress and throw a couple of sheets on it. This was their house. This is where they lived. So the animal skins, all the poles and the pegs that go on the ground. Now, and they're not going on a camping trip when it's convenient. This is tens and hundreds of thousands of people who are all in different places in their lives. Some may be having children and pregnant. Some may just experience the death of a loved one. Some may be just born. Some may be elderly. Can you imagine the case for the men who were taking this tent up and putting it down? Can you imagine the case of the wives or the women who were setting everything up inside and to be told, oh, honey, the cloud has moved, and the face drop after realizing we got to take all this down and do it again? We have to remember that though this happened a long time ago, these individuals are still very human. And it very well could have been a struggle. And what we'll find out in just a few minutes, it was a struggle, as you can imagine. But they were obedient. The cloud moved and they moved. The cloud settled and they settled. And that's where we should be. But I wanted to take a pause here because I wanted to remind us that if you are listening to this and you said, okay, this sounds interesting enough about following Yahweh, being in alignment with his will. In this case, I'm going to spend my time speaking of the cloud to reference Yahweh or Yeshua and his will. I want to take a moment here to talk about sometimes in following his cloud, it won't make sense. You won't have any warning. You won't have any explanation. And that's going to have to be okay. As a matter of fact, we have to remember that Isaiah tells us, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Yahweh says, you're not going to figure it out. Neither are your ways my ways, declares Yahweh. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So you could ask if you wanted to, but he's not at liberty to tell you. That's what makes him sovereign. That's what makes him almighty. That's what makes him God overall. He can say, no, I ain't telling you. Or he can say, not now. Or he can say, okay, I'll tell you. Or he can decide not to tell you because it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't understand. The point is, sometimes it just won't make sense. And the question we have to answer in this moment is when his cloud moves, when it becomes apparent that it is time to pack up and leave, or it's time to stop and settle in, or whatever the command or will is, will we do it? Even if it doesn't make sense, remembering that His thoughts are not our thoughts, and his ways are not our ways, and really trusting him and this manifesting our faith through that obedience. Let me go to this route to make this point about sometimes it won't make sense. What should you do in a famine? So imagine you're in this community, you're living so many hundreds of years BC, and you're here with these people, and there's a famine. There's no food. There's no rain. Where do you go? What do you do? Well, let's think about what was done already, what was done before. So what was normally done, if you look in the scriptures, Genesis 12, what happened? There was a famine in the land, so Abraham went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. Egypt was very prosperous. They had food. They had things down there. I guess it's their Walmart, Costco, if you want to think of it that way. But people knew where to go for the famine. So that's where you would go. In Genesis 41, we see with Joseph talking about his brothers, there was a severe famine, and it was all over the earth. So what did they do? Well, Jacob told the sons, why are you guys looking at each other? Go down and buy some grain for us there. Go to Egypt. So Egypt was a place to go. Is that what you're supposed to do in a famine? Well, obviously this is what was done. But that's not actually what you're supposed to do in a famine. What do you mean? Well, let's look at this verse. In Genesis 26, Abraham's son, Isaac, is in the same situation. What does he do? In verse 1, now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And Yahweh appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. There's another famine. But yet he's told not to go to Egypt. So which one is it? Do I go or do I stay? Well, the real question is, the real answer is rather, it's not about going or staying. It's about watching a cloud. You see, brothers and sisters, sometimes we can start to look at patterns and say, well, that worked. Let's keep doing that. But the cloud may have lifted and said it's time to go somewhere else. While your brain and your emotions are stuck in the old ways of saying we always do it this way. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that when challenging or just simply questioning a tradition. It could be a good tradition or just something we do. And the response I got, I remember just recently talking to a brother. Why do we look at these scriptures like this every year? We've done that for 3 years. Okay, maybe Yahweh moves and says something different. But the question is, are you listening? Are we open to that? This illustration with the famine shows that we should not just take on what was customary or traditional. We should really go back to God. Matter of fact, we should never leave. Just follow the cloud. Another situation is Yeshua. When for 30 years, he's growing up, he's preparing for this great mission he's going to be on to save the world, to preach, to heal. He gets baptized by John the Baptist. And right after that, we're ready to go. But what happens? He's led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. Think about that. It would make sense to get started on your ministry, to get started helping people. Because while you're in the desert for 40 days, more people are dying from sicknesses. They're being mistreated and abused. The leaders, the false shepherds are putting yokes on people's necks they can't carry. There's so much atrocities going on that can be conflicting to go into a wilderness for 40 days and on top of that not eat. How does this make any sense? It doesn't. It won't always make sense. So the first thing I want us to remember is when following the cloud, we have to understand that it's not always going to line up with our mental state. It's not going to always line up with our emotions, as we're going to see here in a second as well. Here's another passage when it talks about it doesn't make sense. Luke 17, there's 10 lepers. And let's just read it. In verse 11, on the way to Jerusalem, he, which is Yeshua, was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and he entered a village. He was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, Yeshua, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. So they stood at a distance. Why? Because according to the law, they could not be in the vicinity of someone. And if they did, they had to cover their mouths and yell out, unclean, unclean. They had to leave their hairs disheveled. They had to tear their garments in a certain way. They shouldn't be that close. So they're asking for mercy. Please help us. You don't owe us anything, but have mercy on us. And in normal cases, when we have this, Yeshua would take them and touch them and speak to them, pull them out of the crowd and do his thing. There would be a healing. This is a very interesting case because he simply tells them, go show yourselves to the priest. Now, for those who don't know or don't remember the importance of this, let me enlighten you or remind you. A leper would show himself to a priest under the conditions that his skin condition was ameliorated. It had gotten better. Things were showing progress. And the priest was to determine whether he still should be under a clean or unclean status. Should he be clean, he will do a number of sacrifices and he'll be free. After so many days and he does a certain thing and he's free from that label and he can be with the rest of the population. But interestingly enough, they were not healed. In verse 14, it says, right before they saying they're crying out, and he just says, go show yourselves. Go show myself to the priest. Yeah. Well, if I'm trying to lean on my own understanding and follow the cloud, it's not going to always make sense. Because you were only supposed to show yourself to the priest after you were cleansed. Yet, you're telling us to go before. Now, had one of them got into an argument with him, they would have stayed there in their unclean condition. But watch the last sentence. As they went, they were cleansed. Listen to that. In their obedience, I don't understand why I'm going to show myself to the priest. This doesn't make any sense. What am I going to show him? He's already declared me unclean. What am I going to tell him? You told me to come here. Who are you? There could have been a whole dialogue that I could see myself getting into. Why? What's the point of that? And I would have been unclean until I'd actually obeyed. Sometimes following the cloud means trusting God, even though it doesn't make sense. Why we got to stay here one day? Why 2 days? Why a week? There would be legitimate reasons why the cloud could move, right? There would be legitimate reasons, rather, why to move camp. There was a better water source. We ran out of resources. The animals ran out of resources. We saw an approaching army, an enemy coming, and we needed to relocate. There's all these things that would be very, that would just make sense. This is why we should do this. I totally agree. Got it. But when things seem haphazard and don't make sense, and you're under a leadership that you don't get, you're like, no, I'm struggling here. I got some attitudes. And we would be missing out on our blessing, on our cleansing in this case, had we decided, no, I'm not going to do it until it makes sense. But as they went, they were cleansed. And we learned later on, 1 out of 10 came back and showed his gratitude. But the point here is, it won't always make sense when we're following the cloud. The next point about this is it won't always feel good. Following the cloud doesn't always feel great. If we skip down to chapter 11, verse 1, we find that the people are complaining in the hearing of Yahweh. And the way it's written here is saying in the hearing of Yahweh is as if they were actually talking to him to his face or speaking directly to him. Like, why are you doing this to us? And the people complain in the hearing of Yahweh about their misfortunes. This is unfortunate. We're having to, we're in the middle of this. We're trying to do this. I was trying to plant that. And I doubt they were planting. But whatever it is, we're trying to get set up and we're having to move. It's inconvenient. Following the cloud does not equal you being happy. And when Yahweh heard this, his anger was kindled, and the fire of Yahweh burned among them and consumed some outlying parts of the camp. So, in our pursuit of his cloud, we must be reminded of two things. One, it's not always going to make sense, but we need to do it anyway. Two, it's not always going to make us feel good. It's important to read this if you were born in this country, America, because we have rights as in the Constitution, and many have bought into the American dream, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. I am owed that. I'm entitled to that. And when we're looking for that, we try to build a kingdom for ourselves that look like that based on the diet that we're given since we were kids, through the literature, through the media, through upbringing, whatever it is. And then we get into the kingdom of Yah, which is a whole different kingdom for sure. And we learn that his decisions are not always contingent upon how we feel. Now, if you didn't grow up in a household that modeled that may be a serious shock to you. If you grew in a household where everything was about, well, we want you to feel happy, you may be you may have sticker shock when you look at the cost of being in the kingdom and say, what? I can't stand that. Surely God doesn't want me to be miserable. I'm sure I've said that many times. I know I've heard people say it and communicated in different ways. As soon as things stop going well, and well meaning I'm not feeling good, it's easy to conclude that this must not be God's will, because this is painful and uncomfortable and this can't be right. But yes, it is right. Of all those hundreds and thousands of people, there's a lot of people who are going to be inconvenienced. And it's probably easy to say most. The big difference is going to be who's going to be surrendered to being surrendered to trusting him and saying, I know he has my best interest in mind. In Luke 9:57 through 62, we see again that if you're going to follow the cloud, and again, I'm using the cloud to represent Yeshua, Yahweh, if you want to align yourself and not build your own kingdom and follow your own cloud and do your own thing, if you are a believer, this is your calling. And if this is your desire as well, listen closely. You're not going to always be happy. He says here to those who are trying to follow him. In verse 57, as they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Yeshua said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Are you sure? Because I'm following Yahweh, Yeshua was telling him, and I don't even know where I'm sleeping. Well, I thought if you follow God, you're supposed to have a life of comfort. That's another promise that we can get confused with the culture and the country that we grew up in, or the upbringing we have. I'm supposed to have this. Life's supposed to be nice and happy and full of abundance, and that's not always the case. It's not to mean that it's going to be morbidly bad, but it's going to be a very healthy dose of difficulties, tragedies, and the whole gauntlet. Look at Yeshua's life. We can't be surprised. No servant is greater than his master, he says. If it happened to me, it will happen to you. In verse 59, it says, to another he said, follow me, but he said, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Yeshua said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. Doesn't feel good. How callous, how cold, how unloving and inconsiderate. Yeshua himself said, no, this is not for me. Oh my God. Can you imagine? There's places in our world and community that will balk at that and say, oh, and let me take it even more specific. In the Christian community, in the brotherhood of believers, who would say, that's just, no, how cold, and this, no, can't do that. Not doing that. But we have to make sure our trust starts to align with what we claim when we sing in those songs about praising him, when we're reading these scriptures. He says, but as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. But I don't want to leave the dead to bear their own. You go proclaim the kingdom. How cold and callous. He says, nope, trust me. Yet another said, I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at home. Yeshua said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Are you trying to lose people? Are you trying to build a ministry or disperse everyone? Are you being divisive? There's that strong word, a lot of religious groups use. Are you being divisive? You're just being mean. No. This is Yeshua. He's telling us the truth. If you really want to count the cost of following, it's not going to be comfortable. There's going to be some serious sacrifices. It won't make sense and it won't feel good. But we still must do it. Now in Peter, this few verses are very sobering. He says, if you really want to follow the cloud, if you really want to follow, again, it's not going to be comfortable. Peter says it like this and references Yeshua in the process. Servants, be subject to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and gentle. Let's stop there. You know where he's going. Not only to the good and gentle, but also to the unjust. Some of us have had managers, supervisors, bosses. Our country has had leaders, politicians. This world has had leaders and CEOs. We can go on. He says you're going to have unjust people. How should you deal with that? If you really want to follow the cloud and this says, go up, down, settle here. Here's what he's saying. Be submissive. Be subject to. Oh no. Sometimes we find this a great opportunity actually to be mean. We use scriptures like we need to be shrewd as a serpent. And there is a place for that. But we do not need to cross the line of being ungodly. Because he says we need to be submissive. Of course, we cannot do what someone's calling us to do that violates Torah or violates any of the commands of God. But oftentimes, that may not be the case. It may just be, it's not done the best. I don't like that tone. It's not the best practice. I would do it and on and on and on. But subject yourselves to your masters. For this is a gracious thing when mindful of God. One endures sorrows while suffering unjustly. You want to show a gracious thing in God's eyes? Endure suffering, even though it's unjust. You know what we do? We like to stand up and fight. We love the movies that get them back. Vengeance. He says no. He says endure. For what credit is it if when you sin and are beaten for it, you endure? But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God. For to this you have been called. Think about that. That's why you were called. This is not like an extra part of being a disciple or a follower. This is not an extra piece. You were called for this reason. To suffer. Oh, let's take that word out. Aren't we supposed to be enjoying to suffer? Our life is coming. We're going to have some great times in this world. But if we're not careful and we try to get all the comforts and the blessings here, we'll end up actually running away from the cloud and saying, no, that's just too much for me. In verse 21, for to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. Watch it now. He says, I, Yeshua, have left you an example. So at any point you may become contentious on this matter and say, no, I do not want to do it. He says, I did it. And I did it for you. No servant is greater than his master. So let's look at what example did he leave for us to follow. We could stop there and be convicted and say, wow, Do I really want to follow this cloud? Do I really want to be in this community where it lifts when I don't want it to lift, when it settles when and where I don't want it to settle? Let's look at the details. Because if we keep reading the verses, it goes on to say, he committed no sin. Neither was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, guess what he did? He did not revile in return. He did not fight fire with fire. He did not say, I'm going to get you back. He did not say, oh yeah, I could call 12 legions right now, but I'm just going to use one for you. I'm going to. Nope. You know what he did when he suffered? He did not threaten. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to, like we just mentioned. Some of us have threatened. Some of us have reviled. I know I have. We want to get the last word. We want to show them, and we try to do it in the name of God. But that's not his name. He's slow to anger, abounding in love and mercy. And as we see manifested in his son, Yeshua, he's full of patience and does not give as we deserve. And thank God for that. But he continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. And that's what we're called to. Do you really want to follow the cloud? Will you really roll up camp and walk the distance and set up camp whenever, not knowing when it was going to be time? And imagine, if you will, what that would do to your psyche, to your mentality after having to pick up camp 3 times, 4 times, 5 times on days and weeks that you never thought were coming. What would happen to your psyche? How would you build your camp differently? You know what I believe is that we will stop building it as if we're permanently going to live there. I don't think we'll stop that. It'll be silly. It's like, look, I can see him talking to my wife. Honey, we may be picking all this up. So what am I going to say? Don't get comfortable. That's a whole lesson in itself, right? These are the tents of the body we're in. Don't get comfortable. We're living in a temporary world. Don't get comfortable. We're on a mission while we're in this world. Don't get comfortable. And we get comfortable. We fill our house with a lot of stuff. We create more pegs in the ground and keep it placed there. We solidify our routines and our religions and our rituals. We find the best watering hole, the best camels, if you will. We set everything up for our comfort. That cloud lifts up, moves on, and we're still there. Why? And when something pulls at us inside, but we've put too much work here. We've done too much. Now, we're talking about a physical move, but it also can be a spiritual one. It could be one where we found a comfortable habit that maybe wasn't so bad at first, but now it's caused us to stay when we should have been leaving. Or it caused us to leave when we should have stayed put. It's caused us to be around a different community than we should be around. To accumulate things, to hold on to anger, to not forgive. It caused us to be in places that we shouldn't be in because we got comfortable and we wanted to feel safe and we didn't want any more problems. We're just holding on to retirement and we're just going to go out this place nice and peaceful. But retirement is not a Hebrew word that you'll ever find in the Bible. It's time to work. As long as we have breath in his lungs, brothers and sisters, it's time to work. And he's called us and told us how it's going to be to suffer. That doesn't mean that we're always suffering, but it definitely doesn't mean we're always comfortable. In Matthew 16, to sum up this idea, he tells us in chapter 16, verse 24, Yeshua told his disciples, if anyone, who? What about the priest? Yep. What about the pastor? Yep. What about the Pope? Yep. What about the president? Yep. What about the janitor and the teacher? Yep. What about the CEO who works over him too? What about her? What about him? How tall, how short, what race, what age? It didn't matter. He says, anyone will come after me. That means you want to follow the cloud? You want to be lift when it's time to lift? He says, anyone. Deny yourself. Deny yourself. In essence, say no to you. I tell you, that's the hardest one to say no to. We can say no to other people sometimes better than we can say no to ourselves. Because we can convince ourselves of just about anything, can't we? Of why we still need to stay in our ways, why we still need to keep those things, why we still need to, we just continue to impress ourselves with so much great jargon and vernacular and salesman skills, and convincing ourselves why we don't need to change, why we keep the old habits, why this is too much. I'm better than I used to be. I'm better than he. I'm better than she. But my parents but he says you need to not deny yourself. That's crucifying yourself. That's killing yourself. And in our world today, we're taught to obey our thirst. We're taught to do what you feel. We're taught to rely on our emotions as a compass and guide for our lives. So if you're feeling it, go for it. What's your passion? What's your desire? If that's what's in your heart, go after that. But what if going after that meant watching the cloud go without you? Would you still go? That's my passion. That's what I'm called to do. It's deep in my bones. And it may be. But the answer may be to wait. And we're not waiting. Or the answer may be to go. And we don't want to go yet. We're shy. We're not ready. We're like Moses, who gave all the excuses for why he couldn't speak. We're like Gideon, who's threshing the floor and told, mighty warrior. He's like, who are you talking to? Not me. But he says, deny yourself. Take up your cross. Well, cross is not like it is today, right? Crosses, they're kind of cool. You can put them on your neck and anklets and wrist and tattoos. And back then it was what it was. It was a sign of death. It was a sign of suffering, a curse. Cursed is the one who was hung from a tree, the scripture says. Take up that cross. This is pain. This is self-denial. If you're going to follow me, and then follow me. There was 3 things he would always say to anyone who wanted to come. This is not just say, confess your sins and you're here. No, there's some expectations. Follow me. Follow the cloud. It's not going to be simple. It's not going to be a happy-go-lucky time. For whoever would save his life will lose it. Are you trying so hard to save your life? Now, don't look left and right on this, because sometimes it's so easy to think about all the other people, all the other Christians, all the other religious people, and we're better than them. Or we think about the world and we're not like them, and I'm trying, and no. Nope. He's talking to anyone who wants to come after him. That's me and you. He says, lose it. But we're trying to make it. We're trying to build it instead of just saying, no, let that go. See, in order to follow Yeshua, in order to follow this cloud the right way, you would have learned how to have light living. Light living. You live very light. You live nimbly on your toes like nomads, because you always have to turn and be ready for this twist, and we can get up and go. And that's how we should be living our life, not burdened and laden with the world's things, trinkets and such. Not burdened with the world's habits of and comforts, air conditioning and eating this way. And there's nothing wrong with doing those things, but it's one thing to have things, and it's another thing to be had by those things. It's one thing to own things, and another to be owned by them. And too many believers are owned by the things that they have, thinking that they have those things, not realizing that they're being owned. And we put the cart before the horse. So, where's the cloud now? Right? So we don't have a cloud. So I hear what you're saying, Brandon. We should follow the cloud. I want to follow the cloud. Let's be honest. That's Old Testament. We're not there no more. We don't have a cloud. So what is that all about? So I want to transition and talk about, can we do that today? Is that something that's realistic? And I want to start with this cool scripture in Ecclesiastes that reminds us that for everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die. There is a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. There's a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. There's a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Why am I reading this, brothers and sisters? Because just like that cloud, there is a time. There's a time to set up your camp and there's a time to set out. There's a time to settle down and there's a time to pick up. It's important that we are mindful of the times and seasons of our life. We do not control the time and we do not control the seasons, but you do get to control your response to them and your attitude towards them. And the cloud moving above the tabernacle is a season. And while you were in season for a moment, that cloud could have moved and now you're out of season. You ever eat fruit that's not in season? I think about how ridiculous it would be if a person is perfectly dressed for the wrong season. Perfectly dressed in the wrong season. Dressed for summertime in the middle of winter. Dressed for wintertime in the middle of summer. But in their minds and hearts, they say, I'm still in this place. They're saving when they should be spending. They're building up when they should be tearing down. They're holding on when they should be letting go. You have to be in tune with the seasons. In other words, you have to watch what Yahweh's doing in your personal life, because he, like we saw in the famine, will move and say, okay, no, not this time. We're not going to Egypt. We're staying. So where's the cloud now? Since we don't have one, should we become our own cloud? Should we be a cloud unto ourselves and say, I'm going to be my own guide and decide where to go? I have to ask that question because many have. Many have just decided this is the religion I've created for myself. I always do this. Every Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Wednesday night, whatever it is. This is what we always do. This is how I do my Bible, and I just go with what works for me. All right. I'm picking the place of worship that vibes with me. I'm picking my major and my career field and my direction, how I raise my kid. I'm deciding how things go based on some basic principles, but mostly how things feel good to me. And we already talked about we can't use our feelings as a barometer. But we do have hope that we have a cloud. And we can have hope because Yeshua has a cloud that he watches. If we look in John chapter 5, in verse 15, it says, the man went away and told the Jews that it was Yeshua who healed them. And this is why. And this was why the Jews were persecuting Yeshua, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Yeshua answered them, my Father is working until now, and I'm working. See, for him, it was simple. He's working. I'm working. I can see that he's working. So I'm working. If he was sitting, I'll be sitting. Are we that connected where we can make that claim? He's working. I'm working. In verse 18, this was why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. So Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. There it is again. Yeshua was still using the cloud. He still had his head in the clouds. He was watching his Father and deciding what to do. See, we don't have to be in Old Testament. We don't have to have a tabernacle and a cloud hanging over. We can't simply opt out of this and say, oh, well, we don't have that cloud. Not at all. Yeshua was doing it, and he's the Son of God. Yet he was saying, I'm watching my cloud. In this case, Yahweh, the Father. Also in Galatians, Paul talks about keeping in step with the Spirit. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. That means the Spirit is moving. If the spirit was stagnant, it probably wouldn't be called the ruach, which has to do with moving and wind and air, which is constantly moving. Are you keeping in step with the Spirit? Has this even been a question in your mind of thinking, what is the Father doing? Am I keeping in step? Where is the Spirit going? Has He planted His home where my home is? Has He planted His spiritual home where my spiritual home is and said, this is good. This is where I'm going to go to church. This is how I'm going to minister. This is how I'm going to read my Bible. This is how I'm going. I'm good. One of the things we know about Yahweh is He will accept you as you are, but He refuses to keep you that way. He's going to command that you continue to grow in increasing measure to be sure you look more and more like Him. So, how do we find the cloud? So, as the year that you're looking at this, we're fast forwarding from thousands of years before, or over 1,000 years, I should say. Well, it's been, thousands of years before. And now asking, how do we find a cloud today? And I want to mention two things. You cannot do it by yourself. That's the first thing. You need to understand you can't do it by yourself. The second is you need to seek His will, not your own. I want to look at these two in your pursuit, in our pursuit to follow the cloud of today. First, let's look at you can do nothing by yourself. In John 5, verse 30, it says, Yeshua says, I can do nothing on my own. Now, Yeshua, really? You can't do anything? He says, I can do nothing on my own. So the first thing you have to come to an understanding of is that you can't do anything on your own. The problem is, if you can't find a cloud if you don't feel like you need a cloud. You won't be searching for it. You're like, I'm good. I don't need that. I mean, it'd be nice and I want to be more pious and religious and maybe upgrade my spirituality or something like that. But I don't need it. But here Yeshua is, the Son of God came down from heaven saying, I can do nothing. Do we have that attitude? I can do nothing on my own. If you're struggling with understanding what God's will for you, we got His global will, follow His commands, be obedient, love. But that God also has specific plans for your life. Just like He did with Jeremiah. He says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And He called him to be a prophet to the nations. He already had a plan for Moses and how he was going to segment it out. A specific plan, not one that was like anybody else. For Gideon and David, I can go on and on. But are you being responsive and obedient to the will of Yahweh in your life? Do you know what it is? Can you see it? Can you hear it? And if you can't, if you're struggling with this, the first thing we need to take a page out of Yeshua's notes is to empty ourselves and realize we can do nothing without Yahweh. In John 16, we find that the Spirit doesn't speak without Yahweh. I still have many things to say to you, Yeshua speaks, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, He will guide you into all the truth, for He will not speak on His own accord. But whatever He hears, He will speak, and He will declare to you the things that are to come. He will not speak on His own accord. You're the Holy Spirit. Can you say anything? Nope. Not on my own authority. I don't have any authority to speak on. The authority that I'm speaking on is from the one who sent me, the Spirit would say. Just as Yeshua. If Yeshua and the Holy Spirit did not feel empowered enough to say, I'm going to do something on my own, why do you and I take such liberties? Why do you and I feel we can go about our day, our morning, our careers, our school, our life, our exercise, our eating, our parenting, and use Yahweh as some extra bonus thing we pull out of our pocket when we've exhausted all of other options? I've done it. I get in times of adversity and stress and difficulties. What do? You revert back to, I like the way I think it's said in the military. It says people don't rise to the occasion. No. You don't rise to the occasion. Something bad happens and here comes a superhero. He rises to the occasion. That's actually not what happens, they say. They say what actually happens is you fall back on your training. So whatever it is that you've gotten used to doing time and time and time again, where maybe rehearsing in your mind, maybe seeing yourself this way or actually doing it, that's what you're going to do. And that's why in the military, they go through drill after drill after drill doing the same old boring thing, because when time comes, it'll be habitual. You don't have to think about it because you can't think during those times. I can do nothing on my own. Are we at that place where when bad things happen, we go to God? Is that training that we've trained ourselves with? Paul says, train yourself to be godly. That's one way to train yourself. How do I train myself? Well, wait till something bad happens. Wait till there's a stress or a challenge is one way. And say, okay, look, I need to go to God in prayer. It took me a long time to learn how to do that in the midst, because I'm like, things are too chaotic now. I can't pray. But isn't that the time to be praying? But I can't pray right now. It's too crazy. That's what I told myself when things calm down. But no. Exodus 14:14, I believe, says, be still and know that I'm God. Be still, still. I didn't know how much energy it took to be still. You know how valuable stillness is today? While we have so much activity and movement, just learning to be still and say, I can do nothing. I'm going to trust you. I can speak nothing on my own authority. Matter of fact, I'll challenge you to this. Use these filters from now on. As you reflect back on what you've done in the last 24 hours, last 7 days, as you reflect on what you're going to do today, on the next 7 days, as you continue to move, I would encourage you, challenge you to use these filters in light of what we just read. Ask yourself, do I only do what I see my Father doing? What I'm about to do right now is because I saw my Father doing this. What I've done already is because that's what I saw my Father doing. Are we using this as a filter? See, we don't have to answer the question, do you want to follow the cloud? We only have to look at our behavior to answer that. Have we been behaving in a way that's congruent with one who follows the cloud once it's lifted? And one who is in alignment with that asks questions like this constantly. Is this the kind of thing that I see my Father doing in Scripture throughout the world, or how we would just on a truth basis? The other one is, I do not speak on my own authority. Am I speaking on a different authority? Am I making claims, and truth claims in particular, that aren't rooted in book, chapter, and verse of the Scriptures? Have I come up with my own philosophy of life and my own doctrine for living, and just decided that, no, this is a good idea, and even going so far as to teach others to think likewise? What authority have you gotten that from? Some obscure verse or book? Or is it founded on the authority of Yahweh? For Yeshua and the Holy Spirit say, I don't speak otherwise. Matter of fact, there was a warning that was given. If you do speak on your own authority, Yeshua says, the one who speaks on his own authority, he seeks his own glory. Woo. That's exactly the opposite of what we're looking for. So we don't want that. We talked about using the filter and making sure we empty ourselves and realize that we can't do anything without him. Nothing. I can do nothing. The second part is understanding that we need to seek his will, not our own. If we're going to find the cloud and see it, we need to see that we cannot move. I can do nothing. I have to have this cloud. I'm not getting up in the morning. I need to pray. I need to go to God. I need to stay with him all throughout the day. I can't write this lesson. I can't study right. I can't do this right without him. And in fact, he talks about you can't bear fruit unless you stay connected to me, which we're going to get to. But also now we're talking about his will. Now let's look at Yeshua. Yeshua says, I can do nothing on my own. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will, but the will of him who sent me. I'm not seeking what I want, what my desires are. This is Yeshua. I'm seeking his will. If you're seeking your own will, you created your own cloud. You're not going to see the cloud of Yahweh. Matter of fact, you may get a nudge that is there, but not want to look, realizing that that's not quite along the path I want to take. I'd rather pursue happiness than pursue holiness. Yep, I'm going to say that again. Are you pursuing happiness over holiness? Then you're going to say, my will be done instead of his. John 7:17, if anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking on my own authority. He says your eyes are going to be open. If your will is to do his will, he says he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking on my own or not. So once your will is in line with his, there's some certain things that you're going to be able to pick up on that says, oh, this is from God. Yeshua said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. This is what I eat. He says, no, this is not just like a side job I do on Sundays or Saturdays or Wednesdays and Friday nights. And no. This is what I eat every day. I'm filling my pod, my spiritual pod in my stomach with completing his will. So I need to know it. I'm watching the cloud. I'm following. I'm sitting when I'm sitting. I'm serving when I'm supposed to serve. I'm preaching and teaching when I'm supposed to teach. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting softer. As I see my Father, yes, this is my sustenance. Do you find sustenance in completing his will? Do you go about your day constantly looking for how you can do his will? Sometimes it's easy just to turn off, go to work, turn on again, turn off, turn on. The training that we need to undergo is one in which we'll live in that spirit. And we make this all about, everything is about doing his will. He says, for I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. He said, this is why I've come. I've came for this one reason. I'm not going to get distracted by all the controversies, by all the delusions and the conversations, the conspiracy theories and things that lead to nowhere. He says, look, I have one objective, to do his will. It's not to get a job. It's not to make a living. It's not to become wealthy and financially independent. It's not to have a nice body. It's not to, no. I want to do his will for my life. I can't do the will for everyone, but I can do what he called me to do. He says, this is what I'm about. Matthew 6, he even teaches us to pray this in our prayer, right? Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's a short prayer. But you can be sure praying that God's will is incorporated into that prayer is very important to Yeshua. And we know this. One of the paramount times when we saw this was in the Garden of Gethsemane at his most trying moment before he was crucified. He prayed 3 times in the garden, asking for the cup to be taken from him. And this is how it goes. He withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, it's the nevertheless here that makes all the difference. This is the nevertheless that many of us refuse or refrain or hesitate to add on to the prayer. We only want to stop here and just say, my will be done. If you are willing, do this. Matter of fact, even in verse 42, he says, if you are willing. This is if you will it. He makes his desires known, but he is sure to end it with nevertheless, not my will, your will. If we are serious about wanting to see his direction for our life, we need to start incorporating this into our prayer. Think how challenging that would be. Not my, but yours. That means at any point, it could be a absolutely contradiction to what I want, because he says, but yours, not mine. I pray for safety, but your will be done. I pray for abundance, but your will be done. I pray for a blessing, but your will be done. I pray, what you see where this is going, your will takes front seat for my will, because your will ultimately leads to the blessings, ultimately leads to what's best, not just what I feel and what I think is. So if you really want to see the cloud, your will has to take back seat. And of course, it's the way we prioritize our life. Seek first his what? His kingdom and his righteousness. It's got to come first. It can't be just another thing we do. Oh yeah, I go to church. Oh yeah, I talk to God. I pray. He says, no, seek it first. And all your decisions, is this what Yahweh wants me to do? Is this where he wants me to go? Is this who I should date? Who I should marry? Is this the college I should go to? The job I should go to? Is this when I should retire? Should I retire? Should I make this much money? Should I eat here? Everything. I want to be in alignment. Should I reach out to this person? Should I speak here, or should I be quiet? It doesn't matter how I feel. I need to, at the end of the day, say, your will be done. And as I mentioned before, just as he did and he's doing and he's done for us, he calls us to do the same. In John 15, he says, abide in me and I in you. As a branch cannot bear fruit by itself. Cannot bear fruit by itself. Cannot. Yes, I can. When I'm younger, I always think I can just push through. I can fight hard. I can make this happen. I'm going to work hard. He says, no, you can't. When Yeshua says you can't, you can't. I don't know what kind of fruit that is or what you call it. He says, no, you can't bear fruit by yourself. Unless it abides in the vine, neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Nothing. Yes, I can. I can hear it in our spirits and our minds. I can do something. And that goes back to point number one. The pride of you thinking you can do something. We need to go back there and say, I can do nothing. I'm completely and fully dependent, not interdependent, dependent on your sustenance to do anything. I want to mention 2 quick points about how we can seek him in his righteousness before we close here. And that is praying and eating his daily bread. I'm going to start with prayer, and it's tempting after teaching for many years, over 20 years, to skip this point and think, this is the bread and butter. Everybody knows this. Pray and eat your daily bread. Read the Bible. We know that. Skip over that. But I've also done it long enough to realize that while we know that we should be doing it, many just don't. And we don't do it to the level that the spirit or the cloud has moved and called us to. We find a comfortable spot and we stay there. Let's get into what that means. Prayer. First thing, if you're seeking righteousness, we need to pray. James says, ask. If you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. Are you asking for it? I want righteousness. Search me, O God. Search my heart. Know my ways. Know my evil thoughts. Are you asking for this? It's a humbling prayer, by the way. But let him ask in faith and not doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from Yahweh. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Ask. Pray. Yeshua did. Speaking of, it was his habit to be in prayer. See, when you talk about seeking righteousness, what better way to go pray? Go seek it. Talk to Yahweh. Listen to what he has to say. In Luke 5, verse 15, it says, but now even more, the report about him went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him and be healed of their infirmities. But he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. He would withdraw. This was his habit. He would constantly get away, a quiet, lonely place by himself and pray. No wonder he was able to see the cloud of his life. No wonder he can make decisions with clarity. Who needs it? He shouldn't need it that much. He's the Son of God. But on the contrary, he prayed all the more. And we can take a big note from that. We see here also, immediately with him praying, immediately he made his disciples get in the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. This is likely after a big feast. And after he dismissed the crowds, he went on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Again, praying by himself. Matter of fact, it was tough to find any places where Yeshua prayed with a lot of other people. It was oftentimes by himself, completely all by himself. And when people were present, like the disciples, they weren't actually with him all the time. They were a stone's throw away or sleeping like the Mount Transfiguration. He was praying by himself, and for a long time, he would go pray. How is your prayer life? Are you praying? Are you prayed up, as the community say? Are you praying? And are you praying as much as you should be? According to your own spirit. We often know that answer. In these days, he went out to the mountain to pray, and all night he continued to pray to God. All night prayer. When was the last time you did an all night prayer? Not having a whole group, just you going to God and praying. Not you even talking about it. Just going to go pray. I'm challenged by that. I think about the length of my prayer. I'm like, what is he praying about? What are you talking about? And I don't think he took a notepad. But I'm challenged by that. I'm convicted that the Son of God, who seemed to need it the least, was doing it the most. Verse 13, and when day came, he was praying all night. When the daytime came, he called his disciples and chose from them the 12 whom he named apostles. No wonder he had so much clarity. He just finished praying. Now he could easily choose after spending that much time. This is one way to see the cloud in our lives is through prayer. In Mark chapter 1, he left a lot of people who were looking for him, saying, let us go to the next towns that I may preach there also. Even though Simon was like, everyone is looking for you. People wanted to be healed. They wanted to have questions answered. They could be helped. Why would you be so mean and leave? Well, if you back up in verse 35, it becomes apparent. And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. So before he was even found, he was out praying. He had no problem saying no to one thing and yes to another because he had a lot of clarity. We need to pray, brothers and sisters. We need to spend more time in prayer. Eat your daily bread. Psalms 119 says, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. See, we talk about having the fire and the cloud. His word is like that in the essence. It's a lamp and a light to our feet. Are we reading it as such? Are we reading it the way we should be? John 6:63, it is the spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. He says this word is spirit. It's life, this word. Deuteronomy 8, and he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. But man lives on every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Do you believe that man lives on the words that comes from the mouth of Yahweh? Do you really believe that? Now, you actually don't have to verbally answer this question because your life will answer that question. How you devour the word of God will tell you and Yahweh if you really believe that your sustenance and life is dependent upon eating the word. Some of us listening to this are not struggling with missing any meals. We eat every day. Some of us may be in wonderful physical condition. But spiritually, I wonder if our spirits are emaciated and tired and sick because it has not been fed. So you don't have to say anything. Whether you think that this is true, you assent to this truth. Yes, this is really good. This is really important. Your life will show that. Your faith is always showing up in your actions or lack thereof. Do you really believe it? You know, the challenging part about reading the word is that some while we understand we should be reading it, are not reading it in the capacity that we should. So some have stuck with snacking on the bread crumbs instead of eating the meal and the full sustenance of the word, because it takes too much time and it takes too much work. Some have relegated themselves to eating the word only weekly when someone gives a sermon at the end of the week or somewhere in the week, but not taking the fork and the knife themselves and cutting through it. Some of us have simply done a cursory reading of some sort to satisfy our consciences that get filled with guilt when we don't do it. But we have not gone to the depth that we need to. We take the little app verse or the daily Bible reading journal, but we really haven't studied. We're not hungry enough for it. We don't see the use for it. Let's just be honest. We don't want to admit that, but our life says another story. While there's other things in our life where we have delved into hobbies and entertainments, or even our work, and we're extremely astute in these areas, but we make excuses why we can't get into the word. You know, I had a quote that stuck with me. It says, "For everything that's important, we make time. For everything else, we make excuses." It's hard to refute that. I always make time for what's important to me. For everything else I couldn't get to, I make an excuse. We'll say stuff like, "I didn't have time," when that's not the truth. We have time. That's why we're alive. The truth is, I didn't make the time because something else was in that time block that I felt was more important. It's the humbling truth. I want to close now in how we started. And whenever the cloud lifted from over the tent, after that, the people of Israel set out. And in the place where the cloud settled down, there the people of Israel camped. At the command of Yahweh, the people of Israel set out, and at the command of Yahweh, they camped. As long as the cloud rested over the tabernacle, they remained in the camp. And this is how you and I should be. As the cloud remains, we should remain. As it sets out, we should set out. We should keep our eyes fully locked in and looking for where he's going by pouring ourselves out and remember, look, I am nothing and I can do nothing without him. I have to know what his will is for me today, for this moment, for this challenge, for this excitement, for this celebration, whatever. I need to know what I should do. We need to continue to seek his righteousness. We need to pray for his righteousness and be willing to set aside our own and not become our own cloud. 1 Corinthians says, "Don't you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you? And isn't it the temple that the cloud was over, the tabernacle at least? Isn't that where the cloud would hover over? Wait a minute. If my body is that temple and the cloud of Yahweh is over me, I should look up and follow wherever that cloud moves because I am the temple." You are not your own. You don't get to decide. I'm going to come up with my own cloud, my own kingdom, and my own way of righteousness. You're not your own. You were bought at a price, the scriptures say here in verse 20. So glorify God in your body. That's an encouragement, brothers. That's a challenge. That's a correction, maybe for some. But we need to glorify God in our bodies. We need to follow that cloud and get out of the comfortable ways that we've been into. We've looked around long enough at so many other people doing just the same as us. So no alarms have gone off in our head. And these scriptures may be yelling out to you saying, "Hey, wake up. Wake up. I know you don't hear this message and it doesn't seem urgent, but his call is not changed. Deny yourself. Humble yourself. Follow the cloud. Even though it's uncomfortable, even though it doesn't make sense, even though it doesn't make you happy, follow his cloud." Blessings to the hearers and doers of his words. Thank you, brothers and sisters.